So I want to welcome everyone to this live that I'm running on how I meditate for my mental health. And as I mentioned in the preface before we went live, this isn't going to be considered medical advice whatsoever. This is just me communicating to you guys what I've done for my mental health, how I use this tool and how I meditate, and how it's been so dramatically different when I started meditating in the way I do now versus the way that I was practicing before, which sounds a lot like what you've all thrown into the chat, which is these guided meditations that are of short duration. And it's not that they're easy by any means, but it's that we're not really tapping into the places inside our mind and inside our bodies that we really want to be to see these long-term benefits to our mental health. Okay? So let's get into it. We're going to start with me telling you about how I got into meditation, because I was a yoga teacher and I was practicing yoga for a long time. And I was in that community doing what I thought was meditation and yoga and doing the spiritual path of some sorts. And I never really think I sunk my teeth into it until I was shoved into a real meditation practice. And I say that because when you practice it for the first time, like Rhiannon already mentioned in the chat, like 20 to 30 minutes of pure silence, shit comes up. Okay. And it's very different than being coaxed into it or guided through it. So I do want to talk about my personal experience of how it changed from a 5-minute meditation or a 10-minute meditation when I've already done an entire hot yoga class and sat in it and was so comfortable and was so exhausted that sitting became easy. And instead, there was a giant contrast into what meditation actually was when I practiced it very differently. So I was thrown into meditation in a retreat setting. I was being trained for my yoga teacher training at the time, and it was based in cognitive behavioral sciences, the entire training. So it was very science-based. It was very aligned with the way that I think and the way that I see all of these tools. And the way that I was thrown into it was, welcome to your 6 a.m. meditation on day 1. Drop on your ass, close your eyes, and that's it. Okay. So we were never told how long we were going to be there. We were never told if we were going to be guided through anything. We were never taught how to sit properly. It was a throw you to the wolves type of situation. And what I realized after my first sit was, this is a type of hell torture that should never be put upon another human being ever again in this entire existence. And my first experience was terrifying and terrible. And I think that a lot of people have that. They have a bad experience with meditation. Either they think it's going to be helpful for them, so they go somewhere and they do it and they're like, holy shit, this is so hard. Or they sit for the first time in their body and they're like, oh my God, I didn't know all of this was underneath there. But that is how I experienced it. It was day 1 of my training, popped a squat. And after rifling with my psyche for an indefinite amount of time that I didn't know, I came out of it in pure panic. I had gone nowhere. I was sitting on my butt and I was dripping sweat. I had felt the entire complexity of every human emotion that's ever been exhibited in my body. And what I had realized when I came out of that meditation was that it had been 45 minutes. That I'm laughing thinking about it. Like, putting you all in a 45-minute meditation would be insane, right? Type in the chat right now. Let me know if any of you have ever sat for 45 minutes or if that already makes you want to shit your pants. Because when I came out of it, I will always remember the pure shock in my body, where it was like, I didn't even know who I was until that moment that I sat there. Kelly just came in with cringe. Stacy is giving me poopy emojis. Like, yeah, I was one step away from soiling myself and being like, I am leaving this training, because I thought, what a wacky thing to do to someone who's never explored their psyche before, right? And this is the premise behind why I teach meditation, because it has this unbelievable ability to teach you so much about yourself and have you look inward and experience yourself in such a different way. But holy shit, does it feel unsafe when you do not know the grounds that you are going to be walking on, and there's no tolerance or muscle built before we get there. So what happened after that first day was I developed a panic disorder around meditation. Okay. Which meant that not only did I have like a panic attack the first time that I was practicing, my mind started ruminating on the concept of, holy shit, I'm going to have to do this every single day for like 30 days straight. How am I going to get through this? And I had a panic reaction in my body that was then associated with meditation. So the reason why I'm setting this up for you right now is because I want you to understand that no matter how scared you are of meditating or what you think you know about it, there is a way to do it so that we are building that skill properly and not torturing ourselves while we're doing it. Okay. And if I was able to cross that hurdle of getting out of panic attacks and not wanting to sit with myself, I am very, very confident that you can do it too. And it just requires a little bit of training and learning. Okay. Does anyone feel like they just can't meditate? Let me know in the chat. One of my patients, yes, sometimes. Yep. It should feel, Kelly's saying I can't turn my brain off. Good, that means you're alive. We want our brain to stay on. Meditation's not about turning off our thoughts. And you will learn a lot about that in the accelerated meditation mini course, is all of these expectations and thoughts that we think that we have about meditation, but we will cover it. Okay. So I want to talk about now why meditation has been so important for my anxiety and depression. Okay. And the first thing that I want to talk about is it allowed me to get really good at doing nothing. And for me, that used to be an impossibility. Like, I didn't do nothing. I was always on the go. My schedule was always completely stacked. And I was someone who could not stop. Like, I was inertia, the most impossible human being to stop and tell to do less. And that's why meditation blew my brain, because I had to change where I was holding my intensity. So instead of doing more and being more, filling my schedule more, it became this activity that challenged me, that I could put in place of doing those things. And then my like bull brain, my intense brain, I'm hard-headed. It was like, okay, this is the thing that's harder for me. It's harder for me to sit still. It's harder for me to not do. So now I'm going to take my hard ass attitude and put it into this thing that forces me to do less. Because for some people, it's really easy to do less, right? They're chilling on the couch. It's easy for some people, but for some of us who have that anxious brain and the go-go and that high achieving mindset, we have such difficulty turning it off and sitting still. And I realized that that's where I had to do my work, because that was my hard and I had to choose my hard. Okay. All of that said, that's how it started regulating my nervous system, because it was forcing my body to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and digest state. And I was constantly on the go in my sympathetic fight, flight, fawn, freeze, like hypervigilance all the time. And sitting inside of that was the first time that my body actually got to do nothing. And when I started doing nothing, it felt very unsafe. So I want to hear from you guys right now. Have you ever tried to like stop yourself and sit in a meditation and you end up getting more anxious when you're doing it? Or you're like, you do 2 minutes and you're like, I just can't take this anymore. I need to get out of this immediately. This doesn't feel like a place that I can hold myself in. Let me know. Let me know while I chug water. Okay. So Kelly's coming through right now saying, yeah, I have to move. And the thing is that these things are going to come up, and I'm going to cover that trauma response, those 4 F's, the fight, flight, fawn, freeze, when we start getting panicked, and we will go over that. But we all, as human beings with this high intensity go-go mindset, we of course have the need to move, right? We are going to be uncomfortable. And that's what meditation forces us to do, is to lean into that sensation and go, whoa, I'm here, I'm still, this doesn't feel very good. But then you get to observe what your brain is doing, what narrative is happening inside your head while you're in that controlled but unsafe place. Okay. So there's no such thing as I can't clear my mind and, I feel like I have to move. Of course, these things are going to come up, and that's how we start to navigate ourselves. And these things that you guys are mentioning in the chat, it's exactly what I went through. And it was funny because it was almost like the first time I sat and meditated was the first time that I got to see myself as I was. And I didn't like what I saw. And that was also an unsettling thing, because you think, I'm a human, I should be able to sit. Other people just sit. Other people focus. Other people, and we start pathologizing ourselves in our brain, which creates even more like destabilized unsafety sensations in our body. And then we judge ourselves, and then we have a story and we spiral, and oh my goodness, right? So if you've ever had that experience when you're meditating, that is very normal. That's what's supposed to happen. And that's why it becomes such a beautiful tool to navigate who we actually are when we sit inside our skin. Okay. So as I was saying before, silence and stillness never felt safe to me. And I feel like I said to myself, okay, I'm going to make it my challenge to bust through that and find that sense of safety inside of myself instead of always running away, because that was my thing. It was like, oh, I don't like this, I'm not doing it. Or, oh, that was hard, I'm not touching it with a 10-foot pole. And that's that high achiever mindset that we get into, which is, if I'm not good at it the first time I do it, I don't want to have anything to do with this thing. This thing is no good, it's no fun, it's not helpful. And we're not able to lean in and go, what is this trying to teach me? Okay. Does anyone have a fear of meditation where you've done it and you're like, yeah, that's too hard, and I don't want to do that again because it's yucky? Let me know in the chat. On the concept of high achievers, because I'm seeing some of you come through with yes, yes, yes. There's this thing that we do, this like perfectionism mindset, where we are able inside our conscious brain to divide what's happening inside our thinking brain and inside our body. And meditation forces us to sit inside that. And when we see it, we don't like what we see. And that's the yuck, right? That's the yucky feeling of, I don't want to do this. This is not for me. This is not going to help me. And it forces us to look at ourselves and our patterns, which is why I think it is so powerful to do it. It gives us access to a part of ourselves. Do you know what I mean? When you're sitting there in silence and you're like, well, I have nowhere to go, so I can only be with myself. And I just posted about this right now before the live, from the last live replay I did about meditation. It's like, when we are in our meditation and we're like, I can't do this, and we leave it, we are telling our nervous systems that we don't feel comfortable inside of ourselves, and that we're not worthy, and that we are not okay. And I think that that mindset has to be busted through as that high achieving perfectionist brain, because you have to be willing to show yourself that it's okay to struggle and it's okay to be uncomfortable. And the meditation will start to teach you how to have that non-judgmental thinking, which you can't conceptualize right now because you haven't done it enough. But your brain will start to get to the point where it laughs at yourself. And that's where I want all of my patients all the time, is always laughing. Comedic brain inside of there, the chatter in your head, I want you laughing at the chatter. Okay. Now, I mentioned before that the trauma responses that we have in our body, that fight, flight, fawn, freeze, it's so accessible when we're in meditation, because you can feel what your patterns and what your brain is doing when you sit with yourself, which is really cool. Right? Everyone always talks about like, oh, I want to change myself, and I want to change how I react to things, and I want to change how I perceive things. And I always say to them, practice meditation. You can go to therapy for years and you can still not walk away with the skill that meditation will teach you, because you have to see yourself as you are, not talk about yourself as you are. And you have to experience yourself as you are, not narrate your life as it is. Does that make sense? Did that land? I want to see some yeses or fuck no's. Okay. Because when you sit and you're in your discomfort, you can see, oh, am I buffing up against myself? Like, am I getting frustrated? Am I getting angry? Like, that means, okay, fight is your response, right? Rifling with the psyche, with your body, always the judgment. You get frustrated. You want to cry. You want to yell. Then there's the flight, which is you get into the meditation and you're like, this is not for me. I don't like it. I'm exiting. Yuck, yuck, yuck. I'm out. And then maybe you do 5 minutes. You don't wait for the timer to go off and you're like, fuck this, and you're out. Okay. That's flight. Then there's, these are definitely more confusing for the fawn and the freeze, because that's more how you respond to others in life and in situations. But do you notice when you're meditating, maybe you dissociate? Maybe you're sitting there and you start thinking about other things. And then maybe you realize that you've been floating away in fantasy land instead of actually focusing on where you are in the now. So maybe you are stuck in that freeze response. Or maybe you're in the fawn response and you're noticing yourself trying to be that perfectionist for yourself, which is a mind fuck. Okay. We don't even have to go there right now because that is like high level meditation stuff. And we won't be able to cover that in the live, but I did want to just mention it because it is one of the most powerful tools for you to learn how you do things. How you do one thing is how you do everything in life. And that's why I love when we sit in silence and we meditate, we get to see ourselves truly for how we process information. And you're in this safe little space in this bubble where no one has to know. No one knows what's happening inside your head. You get to observe yourself like a third-party observer. And you practice how to not judge yourself and go, oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize that that's how I behave, or that's how I see things, or that's how I talk to myself. And it will give you the stillness required to start making sense of all this stuff. And that right there is exactly why I tell people, before you start going into the complexities of your brain and what you want to change and how you want to improve and how we're going to make changes in your mental health, you have to know what's happening inside your head. And you can't know it until you sit with it, right? We're not a textbook. We're a human, and thoughts and feelings are happening in different areas of the brain. Okay. So this is why, again, number 75 on why meditation is so unbelievably important for navigating mental health, anxiety, depression, emotional regulation, all of the above. Okay. I feel like I can move on to the next topic now. I'm going to chug some water first. Let me know that you're still with me. Do we have any questions so far about what I've talked about? I'm seeing hearts on my screen. Love you too. So let's talk about the type of meditation that I do, because I am very strict and I'm very simple with how I practice meditation. And what I do is I do focus meditation. So that's concentration meditation. You are only focusing on your breath, but not controlling your breath. And the reason why I love this type of meditation is because it is practicing mindfulness in the moment. There is no imagery that's happening in your brain that's distracting you from what's going on. And it really hones in the experience of hearing the other voices in your head. Because if you're supposed to be focused on your breath and we keep saying back to the breath, that means we address and know and understand when we've wandered away from that focus, which is the way that I think is the best way to meditate for me. Okay. There's obviously other types of silent meditation you can do, but that's the thing that I like to do. And that's what I teach to my patients in Peace of Mind Method. And this is the exact technique that we're going to be learning in the accelerated meditation mini course if you have signed up. Okay. We are going to do it because I think it's the fastest way to train your brain to get to all of those places that I mentioned before. Okay. I never do guided meditations. For those of you who said that you did guided meditations, what's your biggest irritation with them? Because for me, you can let me know in the chat. For me, what I find terrible about guided meditations is that you're on someone else's journey. And I know that some of us are like, someone else take the wheel and we want them to control what's happening. But you miss out on all of these beautiful, wonderful intellectual lessons when you're listening to someone guide to you where the gold ball is supposed to be traveling in your body, or the waterfall that you're seeing out in the distance. The only type of guided meditation that has very, very good research that is helpful when it comes to stress and anxiety and that kind of stuff, is mindfulness-based stress reduction, and you're doing progressive muscle relaxation. And that is something that I will do here and there. There's also some research on yoga nidra, which is like a deep restorative type, and that is imagery, but it's not going to give you the same learning lessons for your mental health and yourself that the focused meditation is going to give. So does anyone else get irritated with that when you listen to a guided, when you're just, their voice is annoying and they're saying weird shit and you're like, this isn't really working? I just want to hear from you. Some of you guys stay till the end of doing the guided and you're like, okay, I meditated. Good. It's checked off my list. But can you say that you actually walked out of that experience and you're like, that was sick, or it was kind of annoying and you're like, meditation's kind of shit? Rhiannon, yep, and I get angry. I get angry too. When I am meditating, anger is the first. It's like frustration, irritation, anger. It is always right here at the top of my chest. And that's because it's my go-to human emotion on the negative side of things. Some people get sad, some people get lonely, some people get scared. I get angry. So I'm with you, Rhiannon, on that. The next thing that I want to cover is what my schedule typically looks like. Because my meditation schedule has gone from being very strict to all over the place. And I'm going to tell you about how I navigate it when I'm in different seasons. And I don't mean different seasons of my life. I literally mean different seasons, because in Canada right now it is winter and I meditate differently in the winter than I do in the summer. Okay. So in the summer, for example, I will get up every morning and do my meditation outside because I like to get the sun on my eyeballs. I like to lift my cortisol in the proper curve that it's supposed to be happening in. I like being outside. It's a nicer ambiance. You get to have more of that connection with nature when you're doing it. So for me in the summer, that's like an everyday get outside right at the beginning of the day and do that. And most of the time in my life in general, I meditate in the morning. And the reason why I meditate in the morning is because I'm biohacking. And what I do is I like to ride my theta waves. Most of you are not going to know what the heck I'm talking about. However, when we are sleeping, we have certain sleep waves and brain waves present. And when we are waking up out of our sleep, we get a specific wave called a theta wave. And that is the same wave that'll be present in like daydreaming. You know, when you're like sitting there and like gazing off into space, that's a theta wave. And it's supposed to be focused and relaxed attention. So you're not drifting off. We're staying activated in what's happening. Very, very different than all the other brainwaves. Okay. And those are very highly present in the morning because obviously you're coming out of your deep sleep right when you wake up. So for people who have a hard time meditating, I always say to them, do it in the morning because it's going to be better and easier for your brain to latch on to the theta waves in the morning because you're going to be relaxed and focused. And you're going to be calmer. Even if you guys are telling me, no, I wake up with anxiety, my heart rate is through the roof, whatever, your theta waves are still present. It's not about the body experience you're having. It's about what's happening inside your brain. So I am infamous for telling my patients, slide off your bed, get down to the floor, close your eyes and do it. Okay. That just reminded me in my head, we have to talk about how I do it, like sit, because a lot of people, oh no, this is going to sound savage. A lot of people think that you can meditate in whatever position you want. How many of you guys meditate laying down? Tell me in the chat. How many of you guys put on a nice little guided YouTube and you're in bed and you're like, this is going to be peaceful. And you hit play and you're laying down on your back while meditating. You guys feel like I'm chastising you. So you're like, I'm not commenting in that chat right now. For those of you that are saying your anxiety is bad in the morning, I get it. This is what I treat all the time in my patients, but I am telling you that your theta waves are still highly present. So if you're going to practice meditation, it'll be easier to get yourself on the bandwagon in the morning, more difficult in the evening. That being said, I told you my meditation practice is sometimes all over the place. So I prefer in the morning. I find it easier for me to settle in and sit. But if I can't get it done in the morning because my schedule is all over the place and maybe I have patients in the morning or I have to go teach in the morning, then I will do it at any other point in the day. And it becomes a non-negotiable thing that you just have to sit and do. Some people like it to break up their day. Some people like to do it before they go to bed. That is a personal choice. There is no right or wrong way to build a schedule for your meditation. It's just that you have to do it. So you have to hack your brain and say, okay, when am I most likely to get this thing done? For me, I do my best work, like working with my patients and talking and being online and getting shit done. That's better for me in the afternoon. I'm a shit show in the morning. So for me, it's like, if I'm going to be a shit show, I may as well be a shit show while I'm meditating. And it's better for me to time block that way. But if you feel like you shut down in the evening and you're so tired you can't get anything done, maybe that's when you do it. Maybe you have a mid-afternoon slump. That's when you do it. Okay. So there's no right or wrong. There's just what works for your life, and you time block for that. Okay. When do you guys usually meditate? I'm seeing a lot of before bed situations happening. I don't have a judgment on that. I think that it is personal, whatever you want to do. It's going to activate your parasympathetic nervous system anyway. And if it helps you sleep, then you go for it. Okay. Now, I asked you this at the beginning. I said, how often do you meditate? A lot of you came through with it 2 times per week, 3 times per week, whatever you said. Hold on, Kelly. I'm going to answer that in a second. Okay. Kelly's asking, how long are my meditation sessions? I'll answer that in a second. Okay. So when it comes to the amount per week of how often we should be meditating, I would say, and this is just for me, but when I'm in a state of like high symptoms, I'm feeling my chest, I'm feeling my heart rate, I'm feeling that stomach dip. Like if that is where I'm at on a daily basis, I am meditating strictly every day. Okay. This is not a 2 times per week situation. If your symptoms are there and they're wreaking havoc in your life, you need to make this a priority, because your parasympathetic nervous system needs to learn and be retrained how to turn on. And right now, it's not doing it. You're just sympathetic nervous system 24/7, and you are maybe dipping down a few times throughout the day. And we have to cultivate that a lot more. Okay. So if you are in a state of high anxiety, or you're in a state of high depression, or you're in a state of high, whatever symptom you have going on, emotional dysregulation, you need to do this every day. That's what I would do if I was in that state, if I wanted to see changes to my symptoms. Okay. Because this isn't supposed to just be an intellectual aha moment. This isn't like, oh, I'm sitting down and I'm brain training. It's, I'm now trying to re-regulate a system in my body that is constantly on 24/7. Your nervous system doesn't go to bed at night. You do. It certainly doesn't. So you do have to make sure that you are addressing this on a consistent basis if the goal at the end of the day is reduce symptoms. Okay. If you just want to be intellectual and have fun with meditation, great. Do it however you want. But if you're telling me that you're coming in and being like, okay, I've tried everything and my symptoms aren't going away, if that is a sentence that has been uttered out of your mouth and you are not practicing meditation every day, it is going to be so much harder to see that change as fast as possible. People always say to me, how long do I have to wait until it goes away? It's like, okay, practice consistently. If we're doing meditation first, then we're doing breath work, we're practicing mindfulness, we're doing sleep optimization in the program. It's like, okay. And I'm talking about peace of mind method right now in my brain, how I'm organizing it. If we're doing all those things, we want to see a change after a month, a massive change, right? Because you're doing all these new things very consistently. It's when we start to see this longer distance between using these tools that they start to become this nice to have, or we start using them by accident as Band-Aid solutions instead of ways to regulate our nervous system. Does that make sense? And Kelly, just to answer your question about how long, I would say if you're in a state of high symptoms, we're looking at like 15 to 20 minutes per day, every day. And if you can't get it in every day, like I would say minimum 5 times a week, because we have to regulate that system that is consistently in overdrive all the time. Gulp. If that sounds scary to you, so sorry, but we'll have fun with it. Okay. Now, clearly I meditate every day because that's what we're on board with right now. Is it doesn't matter how it gets in, it has to happen. And sometimes, like maybe it's just 10 minutes and I'm like, oh shit, and I forgot, I didn't fit it in and I got to do it. It's like, okay, You're just going to sit and do nothing. We don't need to go negotiate with yourself, Jenna, right? And I think that that's a lot of the human condition is this negotiation, or how do I face my resistance? Like, how many times right now, tell me in the chat, how many times have you guys said, I should start practicing meditation, or I should do it, but, and there's a concession. Tell me how many times that happens. You can just be like, a million. Let me know in the chat. Have you said it before? Yes, no. Yeah, because you realize you're like, oh my goodness, I'm negotiating with myself about doing nothing. I'm negotiating with myself about sitting still. And it becomes the silliest thing inside your head, because you're like, well, why can't I just sit? And then the shame spiral happens. Oh, I'm such a loser. I can't do anything. I'm never going to get better. It's like hopelessness, hopelessness, hopelessness. It's like, or you catch yourself doing the shame spiral and you're like, oh, to the floor, right? And that's the thing that I do in my head, is when I catch myself having this stupid narrative of what I could be doing instead, or how that's a waste of my time, or how I don't want to. I look at myself and I go, are you for real? Like, are you for real? You could sit here and think about this. Your shame spiral could last longer than your meditation, which is the worst case scenario, right? So then I look at myself and I go, down to the floor. Non-negotiable. If I catch myself in that narrative, it is immediately down to the floor, like a stop, drop, and roll situation. Okay. If you guys can implement that, you will be golden. But I know that that's easier said than done, and it's hard. And I only get to laugh about it now because I've worked with so many people on this path. Like, think about every person who's run through Peace of Mind Method has had the same thing come up. I used to run my weekly calls and the same thing would come up. I bet you that I have people in here right now that are my patients from 2 years ago who are still having the same thing come up. And you have to look at yourself and laugh and go, okay, clearly that's not changing. Clearly that voice is always going to be present. So how do I bypass it? You're not undermining yourself by not listening. You're actually doing yourself a service and saying, I'm not going to buy into that thing. Whatever it is, we want to call it an intrusive thought. We want to call it a different person who's living inside our brain. It doesn't matter. We have to learn how to bypass that and say, okay, well, it's my non-negotiable and this is the goal that I have. So my actions now have to be in alignment with my goal. That got motivational very fast. All right. So I wanted to cover this topic about how I face my resistance, because I mentioned at the beginning, you have to have that comedic brain. You have to be able to laugh at yourself, and you have to be working under the assumption that, like, there's hard truths here. Meditation is always hard, no matter what, no matter how good you get at it. Okay. I want to check in here and see, do I have any of my patients in here that have been meditating for a long time? Say yes, say no if you're in here. I can't see you. Okay. I've been meditating for years. This doesn't go away. We are consistently going to buff up against ourselves. We're going to buff up against our mental patterns. We're going to buff up against our shame spirals and our thoughts and how we sit with our shit. That's the point of doing it, is that you're never arrived. We're never fully healed. We're never going to become this like Gandhi-like figure and Buddha. I'm not floating away from the ground because I've been practicing meditation for all these years. It's the same shit. It's the same shit. You face yourself every single day when you go into it. And the beautiful thing about it is, as you get stronger, it becomes weaker, right? The narrative becomes weaker. The resistance becomes weaker. The thought processes become dumber. And you look at them and you have this massive insight into yourself. And you're like, wow, what a silly thing that sitting still and doing nothing has taught me this much about myself. And that's why I'm so passionate about it. Like, can you guys see how much I like? To me, it's top of the list. If you don't do it, how can you actually tell me that you navigate your anxiety and depression, or that you manage it, if you're the one who's living in your head all the time, but you can't even sit with yourself, right? I don't buy that. And that's why I always tell my patients, like, I am the same as you. I'm not better than you. I'm not more healed than you. I'm not more evolved than you. I just sit with my shit better because I practice sitting with my shit. And all I want from you guys is to sit with your shit so that you go, now I understand the lesson of how it's supposed to be done, right? It's about that resistance, and it's about facing that resistance and building confidence in yourself that you can, and starting to trust that it's okay inside there. A lot of us are missing that piece with anxiety and depression. We're like, this is a scary place and I don't want to be there. You're teaching your nervous system that. That is a terrible thing to teach your body. It's a terrible thing to teach your brain, but you're reinforcing it because you're refusing to sit, right? And it sounds so dumb. I get this like shit eating grin on my face when I talk about it, because all you're doing is sitting and doing nothing. And for some reason, it is the scariest thing on planet Earth. But we agree. Does anyone else agree that sitting with yourself is like the scariest thing on planet Earth, or is it just me? Yes. So one more thing, actually two more things. You know what? I lied. Three more things in this area. Okay. Number one, build yourself a schedule, a non-negotiable schedule. Do you guys have a schedule at work? Let me know in the chat. Do you have a schedule of when you work out? Do you have a schedule of when you pick up your kids? Do you have a schedule? Let me know. I'm looking. A meditation schedule. Revolutionary idea. Add it to your calendar. Make sure you get it done, like a checklist, because I know all of you guys, little high achievers, control freaks, you like that little dopamine tick that you get when you're like, check, I've done it. It's off my list. I feel so good about myself because I've done it. So put it on your schedule. Okay. Lauren's exposing herself right now to me. She's like, I have my whole life's a schedule, but for some reason, I can't get the meditation in the schedule. Put it in now. Now you're on the clock. You're on the clock for me, Lauren, and I'm checking in on you at our next weekly group call. Okay. So putting it in your schedule. Number one. Number two, accountability buddies. And that's why I love my Peace of Mind Method community, because I just had a negotiation with Lauren right now. Okay. She's one of my members in Peace of Mind, and she's going to come to the call next week, very well knowing that I'm going to ask her about her meditation. Accountability helps. This is why people hire personal trainers, right? This is why people have running buddies. This is why people have walking buddies. We like accountability. So if it's so hard to meditate, be accountable to someone, even if it's your partner, being like, I need to clock in with you or tell you every single day when I've done my meditation, or I need to tell you when I'm going to do it so that I hold myself accountable. Because when we expose ourselves, then we have to do it, because I know that none of you guys like failing. None of you guys want to let anyone down, surely not yourself, but somehow you're letting yourself down and thinking that you're getting away with it because this is a self practice. Does anyone else think that they don't have to be held accountable because they're like, oh, I'll just do it tomorrow? I wish we had like an embarrassed emoji right now that could just fly up on my screen. Some of you guys are like hiding. I'm not even there. I can't see you. Stop hiding. But I know you do it. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about with how I face my resistance, because if any of you have ever meditated like past 20 minutes, you know that your brain 500 times has said, oh yeah, it has certainly been 20 minutes. Oh yeah, we're done. We're done. We're good. And you open your eyes and it was like 12 minutes and you're like, oh no, right? That happens all the time. Holding yourself accountable, putting your timer on, okay? All the meditations that we do in the accelerated meditation mini course are going to be timed so that you can ignore that intrusive thought in your brain that goes, how long has it been? Has it been enough? I'm done. I've suffered enough. Oh, I bet you I didn't turn on that timer. Whatever your brain is going to do, we are going to bypass all of these obstacles. Okay. So I hope you guys are getting excited about this. Either you're launching into your own meditation after tonight, you are creating a schedule for yourself and doing it because now you get the importance, or you're going to join me on Monday, and that's perfectly fine. And we'll talk about that later. Okay. The last thing, Julia, I'm finally convinced because of a shame spiral. I'm just kidding. It's the best type of shame spiral. Getting yourself on track. So the last thing that I want to talk about is how meditation relates to the nervous system and changes your brain. Okay. Because I know we all like science, right? We love a good science interlude. And I love science and I love research. So let's cover all of this. Obviously, we know that it's activating your parasympathetic nervous system by being still. Okay. We all know that even if we're not closing our eyes and breathing, if we stay still, our breathing rate's going to go down, our blood pressure is going to go down, our heart rate's going to go down, right? So when we're sitting there meditating, it's like all of this on steroids. Like you are focusing on your breath, you're dialed in, you're not moving a muscle. Okay. Did you hear that, Kelly? Not moving a muscle. There's no moving. Okay. When we do this, it's going to dramatically decrease your blood pressure, your heart rate, activate the nervous system in the best way possible. Okay. And people forget it's not just for your brain. This is for your body. This is for your body. Think about how healthy it is. Without even putting something in your mouth, you can change your heart rate. You can change your blood pressure. You can change your nervous system. That means you change your hormones. That means you change your immune system. Like we can't ignore how this is attached to everything in the human body. Every system in our body is communicating through the nervous system, which is unreal. Like it's terrifying if you have anxiety and it's being untreated and you're not managing it, because then you're like, oh my goodness, this is all related. Now my hormones are going to be fucked up because of that. And oh my goodness, my immune system's going to be fucked up. And you start to think about it and you're like, wow, I can't believe I'm negotiating with myself to sit still. Okay. We don't have to like do some revolutionary workout. We don't have to go on a revolutionary diet. You can actually just meditate and your whole body is going to start to change, which is insane. Okay. So that's the first part about how it's affecting the nervous system, parasympathetic nervous system. Okay. Then we are also teaching our body that stillness is safe. Okay. I know I mentioned at the beginning that when I started, stillness wasn't safe. It was not a safe zone. But when I pushed through that and I kept relearning, like, oh, okay, bad things don't happen here. Anxiety can be controlled here. Discomfort can be felt and not judged here. You know, you start to gain this belief in your body and you start to gain this comfort inside your discomfort, which is something I talk about all the time. We need to learn how to be comfortable and uncomfortable at the same time. And that is dramatically going to change your mental health and your perception of the entire world around you, right? Think about how much you could tolerate. And I'm not saying I want you to tolerate more bad things in your life, but think about how much you could tolerate and take on, and that wouldn't affect your mood and your state if you were able to be comfortable and uncomfortable at the same time. Like, think about me right now. You guys think I'm comfortable because you're like, oh, Dr. J, she's talking to us. She's used to doing this. I'm shitting bricks as I do it. Before I went on camera, had to be like, my hands were freezing. My feet were freezing. I had to go through my own body nervous system experience so that I can show up and be comfortable and uncomfortable at the same time. And I feel this every time I interface with a human being, every time I'm on a patient call, every time I do a live, every time I get on the phone with one of you that I've never met before in my entire life. Okay. And Stacy's right now saying you do it well. I do this well because I've learned how to navigate my discomfort. I actually know how to hold it inside my body at the same time. And how did I do it with you right now? I exposed myself. I said, hey guys, I don't feel very good while I do these things, but I'm navigating it because I have the tools to do it because I've strengthened the muscles in my brain to be able to. Okay. So you expose yourself, it gives you space, and then you get to be two things at the same time. And that is completely the opposite of black and white thinking, which so many of you have as a cognitive distortion. Okay. So if we want to do this whole revamp of the brain, it requires this tool. And again, that's why I'm so obsessed with it. I don't think I've ever met someone in my life who is as obsessed with meditation as a tool as I am. And I think like a lot of the mental health industry like sells meditation so differently. They're like, you know, it's going to give you inner peace. It's going to make you feel good. It's gonna solve your, your problems because you just need to like lead with your heart. It's like, no, we need to suffer. We need to sit with ourselves. We need to learn who we are. And then we start to make massive, giant changes in our lives that sometimes we don't even know that it's being attributed to meditation. There are so many times I've worked with people where like they come back after a month and they go, I feel better. I don't even know what happened. And I sit there and I go, okay, you don't know what happened? That's cool. It was your idea. You don't know what happened. You're better. Everything's great. But then you realize that they're practicing their meditation and they're doing their mindfulness and they're doing their breath work. And it's like, oh, this starts to make a lot more sense that your brain actually starts to change when you engage in this type of activity. And I feel like I'm dangling the carrot so hard right now. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more of the science behind what's happening inside your brain when you're meditating. Okay. First of all, and this is one that I love talking about, is the default mode network in your brain. Okay. That is this little part of your brain that is responsible for you filtering out information everywhere all the time. Okay. That little voice in your head, that's your default mode network. You not paying attention, like right now you're looking at your computer screen and maybe you're not noticing your pet somewhere else in the room. That's your default mode network filtering that out. And the default mode network in anxiety and depression is bonkers. Your monkey mind, that thing that's like, ah, and it's everywhere all the time, that's that part of your brain. And meditation quiets it down by basic brain training. So by you sitting there in stillness and in silence and focusing on your breath, you are actively changing areas of your brain. And I love talking about the default mode network because people don't even know that it exists. Everyone's obsessed with like amygdala, hippocampus, like everyone wants to talk about these big brain structures, which I will cover because meditation does have an impact on them. But we forget that meditation is a direct impact on the rumination, the intrusive thoughts, because it trains your brain how to filter out information and what you respond to and how you respond to it. It's like the most simple mathematical equation I could ever create for you. Meditation leads to less bullshit in your brain. Okay, that's simple. That was number one. Number two, I mentioned the hippocampus. So we're going to talk about it very briefly right here. That's the part of your brain that's responsible for the emotional regulation and how you see things and how you respond to things. Okay. That part of your brain, it gets bigger when we start meditating. So it's more mastery. We have more emotional regulation, more control of our mood, more control of how we perceive things and how that leaves an impact in our emotional body, which directly impacts our nervous system. Okay. So in other terms, it makes us more tolerant. It increases our window of tolerance or our stress tolerance or our anxiety tolerance, depression tolerance, whatever you want to call it. It increases your ability to deal with your bullshit. I feel like I've said bullshit so many times in the last 30 seconds, but bullshit, okay? Most importantly, it increases your tolerance to yourself, okay? Sitting with your shit increases your tolerance to yourself, which is, again, beautiful, amazing. I could not even think of something in this world that can teach you that the same way meditation can. Like, not replicable. I can't give you a pill to teach you how to be better at dealing with yourself. Does anyone know of a pill? Let me know. If you're on a medication where you're like, wow, I now love myself and everything is better. No. Okay. So I feel like I said this already before, but I'm going to say it again. But the flexing the muscle of non-judgment is huge because it changes the narratives inside your brain. Okay. Changing the narrative inside your brain changes the hormone cascade. We all know about cortisol, right? It's like, when we feel stressed, it gets released into our body and we're like, oh my God, this is terrible. I feel like I'm about to run away and also eat a lion at the same time. And your whole body's being flooded with stress hormones. And when that happens, it's happening because of the thought. It's like you can create an entire hormonal cascade inside your body because of a thought. What if we were able to have a thought, think about the thought, have non-judgment of the thought, and then ignore and bypass the entire hormonal cascade that we can avoid if we just learn how to sit with things with non-judgment? That sounds really good, right? Again, I don't have a pill for that. I wish I did. This is why I'm so big on meditation, because it changes the way that you see the world, which has that direct impact physiologically inside your body. Okay? I I feel like we need a second for that to land. Now, more science for you, because my science brain is going here right now anyway. But when we have the cortisol released in our body, the body, in order to combat this high level of stress, okay, it has to release endorphins. And I talked about this in my group call this week. So hopefully any of my Peace of Mind Method members, this is going to make sense to you. But let's say we're sitting in our meditation and we have the thought and we're like, oh my God, hormonal cascade, whatever. It's happening as you're there. Your body, when it sees the cortisol, because you're sitting and doing nothing, it's going to release endorphins immediately to combat the pain and the stress that you're feeling in your body. Okay. You won't know the effects of that until you come out of your meditation. Can I hear from one of my patients right now who's in the live? Even though you're in your head and freaking out during your meditation, let's say it's a very bad day and you're doing your meditation, you're like, this is shit, garbage, dumpster fire. You still come out of it and you're like, whoa, I feel different. Can I hear from you right now? Because I have that experience very consistently. That was a big Hydro Flask slurp for all of you. So in meditation, sometimes I'll be sitting there and my brain will be going wild and I'll be sitting there in my head laughing, being like, wow, this is one of those days. Okay, cool, great. And I still come out of my meditation after, and it's as if I'm floating on a cloud. And yes, that does have to do with activating the parasympathetic nervous system, but it has a component to do with, wow, my body just experienced controlled stress. And now endorphins have been released. Dopamine has been released, which is going to make you feel better in the long run. So even if you're sitting there for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, sweating buckets, and feeling like, wow, this is the most mentally taxing thing I have ever done in my life, and this is stressful and this is terrible, you're still getting the positive brain benefits from sitting there and rifling with yourself. That's kind of crazy, right? So that's why I always tell my patients, there's no such thing as a good meditation and a bad meditation. There just is meditation. And you get to actively walk away, patting yourself on the back, going, I did it and I got what I needed from that, regardless of what it dished out to me. And that's going to go against your perfectionist, high achieving mindset. You're going to be like, no, it has to be good. Otherwise it didn't work. And no, when you sit and do it, you're going to receive the benefit regardless. Okay. Best case scenario, it's foolproof. Okay. Yeehaw. I feel like we've kind of navigated a lot of the science there. Can I give you more? Give me thumbs up if you're not confused, and I can give you just a little bit more. I see one thumb flying on my screen. One person's like, yes, tell us more. Okay. So we talked about parasympathetic nervous system. We won't have to unpack that again, but I mentioned the amygdala before, right? And everyone's heard amygdala. Oh my God, my inner sirens. It's telling me I'm hypervigilant and I'm scared. And that's why I'm getting panic attacks. Yes. That is why you are getting panic attacks. That's why you have anxiety. Your amygdala is overactive. It has actually grown inside your brain, and meditation takes that part of your brain, the hypervigilant sirens, and it makes it shrink. Okay. That is, I haven't even sworn that much today, fucking amazing. Okay. Again, you don't have to do anything. The fact that you're sitting and meditating and focusing on your breath for however long you're going to do it, it's actively shrinking areas in your brain that have overgrown because you've retrained the neural pathways in your brain to fire. So that part of your brain that's like hypervigilant always and overreactive, you are toning it down. Okay. That is amazing. I already told you about dopamine, so I feel like I don't have to cover that. Right. And then I already did talk about the endorphins, and everyone loves this one. It's like a good little catchphrase. Meditation also increases serotonin levels. And everyone has this holy grail in their head that serotonin is like this mental health panacea, which means the answer to all things. It's like the unicorn in the room. Everyone wants more serotonin. Like, no, we want it to be regulated. But meditation does naturally increase levels, which has to do with the entire hormone cascade that I've already talked about today. Okay. I feel like I have been talking for 500 years. So let me know that you're still with me over there. And I feel like we can just move into Q&A at this point. Like I do, I know what I want to ask you. Okay. Do you think you're at the point where you're listening, you've digested all this information and you're like, yeah, I'm ready to learn how to practice meditation. Like, I know that it's going to be scary. I know that it's going to have shit moments. I know that it's going to take a lot out of me, but I'm ready to dive in and do it based on the concept of curiosity. And that's what I always want people to feel. It's just curious. I want you to be curious about your brain, and I want you to have these new tools to use. Okay. Rhiannon's going, I'm ready. I need it, but holy fuck. Yeah. Julia, I'm scared it'll make me worse. That's the biggest deterrent. I mean, I just told you that there's really nothing that you can do about this that's bad. It's always a controlled environment, and you're only going to learn things about yourself. If that's bad for you, if you want to learn nothing about yourself, then by all means, don't do it. But I'm only like this accelerated meditation mini course that's starting on Monday, and I'll explain it to you in a second. It's only 5 days. Okay. It's only 5 days. All you're committing to is 5 days. Let's stop solving world peace and imagining ourselves like 10 years from now on a mountain in Nepal. Like, you're going to be in your bedroom. We're good. We're going to be learning the basic tools to start doing it so that you can build your practice and challenge yourself. And like I mentioned at the beginning, I'm going to show you in this mini course how challenging I want it to get. Okay. Because I don't want meditation to always be this blissful experience where you're like, wow, that was amazing. I feel so good. I'm so relaxed. Like, I want you to sometimes come out of it and be like, whoa, that is a shitstorm inside of there. But that's okay, because I'm seeing it. And if I can see it, that means I can navigate it. And it's like, curiosity needs to lead the brain in this process. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to post right now the link to sign up for the accelerated meditation mini course. Let me know that you can click on that and that it's like an active link. Okay. Now, here's the best part. When I built this course, what I had in mind was, we are all people who have busy lives, who have shit to do. And maybe you can't fit it in the morning every day. Maybe you can't show up to a live every day. Maybe you want to have this in your back pocket to do next week or next month, whatever it is. But what I've done is I'm running it starting on Monday from March 6th to March 10th. Every single day, you are going to receive your learning lessons and your action tasks from me. Okay. So you get up and then you can decide, okay, I'm going to learn the information maybe in the morning, or maybe I'm going to go to work and then later I'm going to learn the information and I'll meditate before bed at night. And you get to build your schedule because this is your life. Okay. This isn't like an immersive experience where like, I'm going to be doing sound baths and like you're meditating. It's like, no, you are learning the skills. I'm teaching you the lessons. And then you get to put this into your life in the way that feels right for you. Okay. What I want you to do is just stick to it. That's the only thing I ever say to my patients. You need to want this more than I want this. Like, yeah, I want you to meditate. I want you to practice this. But like, most importantly, I want you to feel better. And I want you to stop telling yourselves these lies that you've tried everything and done everything. When I'm telling you, take a 5-day commitment and learn this tool and see what it can do for you. See the challenges that it brings up. See what's actually happening inside your brain. I'll be here to talk to you. You can message me. You can tell me how it's going. You can ask me questions. But like, we need to actually put our pedal to the metal or put our money where our mouth is and say, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm not just going to talk about it. I'm not going to think about it. I'm not going to say, oh, maybe when it's like, when what, right? Now you're already making negotiations and having concessions and having qualifiers. Just do the thing. Okay. So if that sounds good, that you're like, okay, I'm ready to mentally do this. And I know it's going to be hard and I know it's going to be a challenge, but it's always going to be that. And there's so much information and science to back this up. Let me know in the chat. Be like, yes, I'm ready. I will hold you accountable. I see Julia saying that she's ready. So good. I'm going to hold you accountable. You're going to be there bright and early on Monday. I mean, I will be in your inbox bright and early on Monday. Kelly is going to join us. Rhiannon is joining us. Stacey, you're still on the clock. Lauren, how about you? Stacey just went, I'm ready. SpongeBob voice. Is that, I wish I could make you live right now so you could do it for me. Lauren's in. All right, Lauren, I'm going to be checking on you next week. So let's do some Q&A. Do we have questions? Ooh, I have a question. I have so many questions. I just feel so lonely over here. All right. Okay. What obstacles do you think are in your way? So, like, what obstacle do you already see in your brain coming up, being like, oh, I couldn't because blank? Okay. Let's see how we can work through that on the spot because I've said the word biohack, I mean, like, hack myself, probably twice today. And sometimes we have to know that we are not always responsible to be our own driver, which is why I talked about building a schedule before. We have to build in our own obstacles. Like, oh, if I know I'm not going to want to do it later in the evening, it happens in the morning, non-negotiable. Okay, Stacy's saying trying to keep myself distraction free. When we say distraction free, do you mean people in your house or you mean your mind wandering? Because your mind will 100% wander. If you're worried about your dogs being in the room and interrupting, that's okay. That is now a part of your environment that you have to deal with, right? When you go, guys, this is so weird, but when you go meditate in like a hall of like meditators, do you think everyone's silent? There's people in there burping, there's people in there farting, there's people in there being like, like clearing their throat. There's no such thing as no distractions. I want the distractions. I want that stuff to come into your forefront of your brain so that you can go and letting it pass, right? So let's not try and create this perfect environment where it's serene and we're diffusing lavender and there's incense burning and you're on a meditation pillow and everything is just unimaginably perfect and you float away. It's like, no, you're not reaching enlightenment. Okay. We're sitting there to sit with our shit. That's the point. Okay. Lauren, having time alone without kids, other responsibilities. Okay. I'm really glad I unpacked that already. And you're going to wake up early next week to get ahead of it. Fine. I'd love to see it. Okay. Dogs and kids are the big ones. Yeah. Yeah. When my dog, when Otis watches me meditate, he goes like this. He like puts his nose near mine, like there's something wrong with my mother. And then eventually they settle. And I find it funny, right? Because their nervous system, ugh, I love animals for this reason. It starts to co-regulate with yours. And they're like, oh, it's safe. Okay, I can chill. So it's a very fascinating thing if you have dogs. Let's see what they do. Okay. Rhiannon, I just can't hold myself accountable. I always come up with an excuse or tell myself tomorrow, have someone else keep you accountable. I'll keep you accountable. I'll message you every day and make you do it. You want to have a pact? I'm going to do it with you guys. I'm going to be meditating every morning from March 6th to March 10th, every single day, the exact way that you guys are doing it. Okay. Bobby, enlightenment while the cat licks your face. Yes. Yeah, my dog's foul. He'll stick his tongue straight in my mouth. I feel like a cat is so much smaller though. Good, they're sneaky. All right, I have stuff in the Q&A. Farhan is asking, do you literally keep your eyes closed during meditation or open them and focus on an object? Always eyes closed. That is just based on tradition, okay? If your eyes are open, I mean, okay, can I be more specific about this? So I will tell you that if meditation feels so unsafe at the beginning because you have history of trauma, if we're talking like big T trauma, PTSD, then yes, minimum effective dose, window of tolerance, like sit there and have your eyes placed on something and say, I'm looking at my keyboard, like I'm staring at the arrow, I'm breathing, I'm staring at the arrow, I'm breathing, because you need to create that environment of safety for you not to flee and go into that trauma response. Does that make sense? So I would say if that's a part of your history, a part of your mental health history, and it feels unsafe being with your eyes closed, then 100% you make these shifts so that you can navigate around yourself so that you're still practicing meditation. Is meditating once a day enough? Yes, 100% once a day is enough. And I would say that if you're already like, and this is from an anonymous person, but let me know if you're already at that 20-minute, 30-minute mark, because then we can build from there, right? And that's what you'll be doing in the accelerated mini course. I'm not even telling you guys where we're going with it. You are just going in with your eyes closed and you're going to trust that you got this. What's in the course? Videos of you and talking and literature. So it's me giving you the learning lessons on how to practice meditation in the way that I want you to practice. I'm going to guide you through a few meditations to get into them. I'm going to say no more. There's going to be other activities for meditation that you're going to complete, and you are going to be building your practice exponentially each day. So you're going to do learning lessons where I teach you specific things. We're then going to be doing some journaling activities as well. And then you are going to be, it'll almost be a check-in. So it's me already with my brain being through the process of meditation, and I'm going to kind of grab your hands and take you along. Okay, does that make sense? But you're going to be meditating every day. You're going to be doing activities every day, and you're going to be building your practice long-term at the end if you're serious about it. Okay. Let me see what else I have. Oh, I answered both of these in the Q&A. Okay. Do we have any other questions for me? Lauren, did you already say how long the time commitment per day it will be each day? I would say with all the learning lessons, plus the meditations, I'd say give yourself around half an hour each day. Okay. Lauren, you're locked and loaded already. The US dollar conversion. So in Canadian, it's 97 Canadian, and the US dollar conversion is around 70 US dollars as of today. Something like that, 71, 70. Okay. Do we have any other questions? Kelly just signed up. She's locked and loaded. Stacy, I have hip issues. Oh my God. Me too, girl. Do you recommend a good meditation pillow or just any pillow? Okay. I would say, can I get up and show you? Any pillow is fine. Okay. If your hips hurt because you, when you cross your legs, I was going to turn the screen down, but I realized I had this external camera up here. If it hurts to have your knees resting out to the sides, you can either prop pillows up. If you're sitting, like prop the pillows underneath your knees so they're lifted, okay? Or you can stack pillows so that your bum is higher than the knees, and that'll be way more comfortable on your legs. But we will cover that in the setup in the program, and I'll give you different options, okay? Me and you can also talk about that, BTS, because if the hips are really bothering you, we are going to find a way to navigate through that obstacle, okay? So feel free to shoot me a message so we can talk further about that. Do we have any other questions for me? We're good. We're good. Give me thumbs up if we're good. Amazing. I liked my hearts. All right. So let's park it there for today. I feel like that is a lot of information to digest. Okay. If you're starting with me, we are starting Monday. It's Thursday. So you got a few days to mentally prepare. Batten down the hatches. All right. If you've signed up tonight, you are getting an extra bonus meditation. Okay. So yay, you. I'm just making sure we don't have any other questions coming through. I am super excited to watch you guys all do this. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm very passionate about this topic. Okay. And I'm excited to see what comes up inside your brains when you start to sit with yourself. It's not something I can prepare you for. You just have to do it. Okay. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining me live. This has been a blast. I can't believe I talked to you for this long, but you know what? I just like hanging out with you guys. Okay. If you are joining the meditation program and you want to have a chat with me first, feel free to shoot me a message. I'm going to give you my Instagram right here. So if you want to send me a DM, you can. And I feel like everyone is already a member of Real Life with Anxiety and Depression. But if you're not, you can always shoot me a message and I will send you the link to join the Facebook group. Okay? You know where to find me. This has been splendid. I hope you all have a lovely evening. Some of you are even leaving this call and 100% going to try meditating. Don't worry, it's coming for you. Okay? So I'm looking forward to working with you all next week. Peace out, and I hope you all have a lovely evening. Au revoir.